Okay, on this episode, we'll look at a couple of stabilizer moves from the Expanse, and then some examples of how they visually hold back information to drive you crazy. This is Hot Moves. The Expanse does a lot of excellent Steadicam or stabilizer moves, and I'm going to break down some of them over the next few episodes. So let's look at a move here. We'll do it one segment at a time. So first, a woman called Sakai does some work in the foreground. I can't tell if the cup is 3D or live action, but I'm going to guess live action with wire removal, because if you did this in 3D, you'd totally make it rotate a little bit, because it would be difficult to just put a cup in the air in 0G and not have it even drift a little bit. So this is where we are in a deep staging shot with Holden in the background. And then she walks back into an over the shoulder and the camera maintains its offset, if you remember the offsetting technique from a few episodes ago. And this is just a great idea. That's just fantastic parallax here. But even though this is obviously designed in keyframes, and you can see that we did have a keyframe where there's an over the shoulder here, that doesn't mean that you actually have to stop in a keyframe. You can just pass through them. And that's what she does here. There's just a little bit of a smidge of an over the shoulder, and then she keeps going. And this is an awesome way to switch between people during a Steadicam move, by the way, that you follow someone, you let them lead, and then if there's enough of a gap, you can actually turn around, and now the others can follow you. And again, in Shot Designer, even though we stop in a keyframe because that's how it's designed, actually they pass through the keyframe, and then you can see we turn around, and now we're leading in front of Holden. Okay, and then we just simply pull over here as they talk about getting some sleep. And this is probably the least interesting framing that we pass through, but it gets the job done. And then we pull over here with a more private shot on Holden. And this is normally the kind of shot that you would use to convey something that the others aren't supposed to see, so we get like a private view here. But in this situation here, it actually literally has no meaning. He's just talking about getting some earplugs. These kinds of shots can look very melodramatic, but they actually feel much more melodramatic to shoot than when you watch them later. And this is a really effective technique to get a private view. It's just that people feel kind of squirmy when they shoot it. It's like it's too much on the nose. But you actually see it all the time. And it works every time. And nobody's squirming when they're watching the movie that this is too melodramatic. If it really bothers you that it's melodramatic, you can just have them actually do some work that they have to do, because then there's a reason besides just standing there with your face towards the camera. And the other thing you can do is just not stay there very long. Like, he could just move on from here, and then it also wouldn't feel too melodramatic. Anyway, this is one of many very good Steadicam moves in the Expanse. It does require a 360-degree set, which not everybody has. And actually, those can be hard to get even if you're like out in nature, because you still have to hide the video village. So 360 degrees, not easy. Okay, next up is another stabilizer move. And this one is actually in the style of a Dolly move. But then because it's on a stabilizer, they have a very easy time adding things before and after the main part of the move, which adds like a certain kind of finesse. So let's just play the main part of the move. They're having a conversation in front of this video screen, and then we get a straight up keyframe to keyframe move.
My people will find her.
Your people are a part of this.
We don't know that yet.
So this keyframe move is just the middle of the scene, but let's concentrate on that because that gives the best insight into where this kind of an idea probably came from. Often you see camera moves that look advanced and you think that you could never get ideas like that. But actually most camera moves are built around one simple idea that you could easily get, and then it's expanded and built out. So let's try to walk through that same process. So here in the middle of the scene, they're in front of the view screen. And then when Fred Johnson walks over, we do like a hard crank, which also basically becomes a pivot on him as he gets over to his seat. So again, they hard crank into the next keyframe. And now let's expand it. So in the beginning, they prefix the whole scene with a subtle push that's just playing for the first part of the dialogue. And this is before we've done the hard crank.
Scrub that video.
She said someone was going after the proto-molecule. She had proof, and then minutes later she's grabbed. That can't be a coincidence.
My people will find her.
Your people are a part of this.
And then they also expanded at the end with a subtle push towards Holden's eyeline.
And I shut down the port before anyone could leave, so...
So dead or alive, she's still on this station.
And that's how you construct camera moves. So there's a subtle push here, which was the thing that we glued at the beginning, and they're still talking. Then Fred Johnson walks over. We do like a pretty hard pivot around. And then we start pivoting back on Holden, and at some point we also frame back up for him. So that's a beautiful shot. And then finally, The Expanse is really good at withholding information. I don't think that I've ever seen any show be this good at keeping a secret, which is also why I'm tippy-toeing around plot spoilers. But also in the shots themselves, they just make you want it. So here's a typical example of holding back a reveal, just because. So they just stay behind for a while. Although actually this particular reveal, they kind of give up their secret really fast. At least compared to how they've kept major proto-molecule secrets for 5 seasons now, goddammit. And here's another example, even at a small scale. So here someone is listening to their conversation, but we don't know who. And notice how absolutely obnoxiously slow the cup is in just a moment.
No. Hey, Lucia.
You were part of this. No, Scotty. Leave me out of it. Murchie is going to pay for what he did. You better be there.
Anyway, I hope you thought that was interesting, and I'll see you in the next video.